then we're going to start with our panel next. So our panel is going to be a founder's experience of commercializing quantum technologies, and basically we'd like your questions. So put some questions in the chat box, or if you'd like to raise your hand and get brought up to the stage to ask a question live, then we'd more than welcome that. I'm going to introduce you to Jane Garrett, who is our chair for this session.
Thanks, Kim. I'm also part of QTEC. I'm the Deputy Director for Enterprise, so the QTEC programme is entirely my fault from its beginning. And so we've got a selection of our QTEC fellows here today to answer your questions. So as Kim said, please put some questions into that chat box. If not, I've got some pre-prepared questions. But I want to just give you an indication as to why we've chosen these panelists so that you can understand what their track record has been as they've come through the QTEC programme. We've got Chris Irvin of QTEC. They're going to introduce themselves, so this is very briefly. Chris was actually involved in QTEC at its beginning and its foundation before I joined. And he's now the CEO of QTEC, and they have gone through a journey of raising equity finance. Matt, he is the CPO, and he can tell you what CPO means, of SEEK. Matt was last second cohort. Now, he met the team from Hyprus at, I believe, Matt, the Q2B conference, and he did an amazing deal to create SEEK as a spin out from Hyprus. And as you heard in the video, they've just recently closed the Series A funding. Now, Murray has come through a different channel. You've heard from Zhao, who is the founder of the technology that's behind QLM. Well, Murray was in fact Zhao's mentor, and we've worked, if you've heard from Matt, a lot of mentors are helping the fellows on the QTEC programme. And Murray came and said, I've been invited to be the CEO. Is that okay with you? And we said, yes, of course that is. So they too, those three businesses have raised equity finance. And our final business from Aracelli, QTEC, this is bootstrapped. And you would have heard, if you were at Aracelli's session, you just presented, didn't you, your last session, Aracelli. So Aracelli can answer all of your problems, your questions of what it's like to take a company from nothing and get revenue, get that first customer in order to generate the revenue that you need to get the business going. So with that, I'm going to ask them to give a better introduction to themselves. Okay. And we will start with Aracelli, please.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Thanks also, Kim, for inviting me today. I'm going to tell you first what kind of fellow I am for the QTEC program. I'm the executive fellow, so the second pass that you showed today. Why? I think there are different reasons why that happened. First, it was not for personal reasons. I couldn't move to Bristol so easily while I was finishing my PhD. But also, my company is more on the services side, and it's a different journey when you are offering services than when you're offering a product. It's a different journey when you pitch, when you talk to people, and for that, it was really good to have the support from QTEC as well since the beginning. Since day one, they brought ideas, and maybe you can go in this and the other direction. So, nevertheless, even if I'm not looking to raise a serious and amazing millions like Matt, I'm really thankful for the support. Mentorship has been amazingly through the support from QTEC. But I'm going to tell you first. I'm not going to talk for really long. I'm just going to tell you what we do at QTEC. QTEC means Quantum Resources and Careers. And I built this because I moved from industry to academia, and it was the beginning of this new market, these new quantum technologies, where a lot of academics were becoming entrepreneurs, were becoming part of businesses. I came from industry, and I realized that I could talk both languages. But also I could support the ecosystem providing services. I worked before as resource manager, so it's more about the strategy for innovation products. So I thought that I could bring all my experience and my skills on doing what I enjoy the most, that is bringing people together in the quantum community. So that's my story. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. Murray, perhaps you'd like to go next.
Thanks, Jane. I probably shouldn't go next. I should go last as not being a fellow. But I certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today. And it's been interesting to watch QTEC over the years. I was there pretty early on, and so started mentoring with Zhao, and he was in the first cohort, and you've seen his story, so I won't repeat that too much. It's still going on. I guess the lesson there that we should say is things take longer than you think. It's been a fairly long journey, and it still continues. But I've also mentored 3 other fellows over the years, almost one out of each year. But I think I must have missed the last year somehow. I got busy because, as Jane said, after I'd finished mentoring Zhao, actually quite significantly after, he came back and said, "Look, I've managed to raise some money, but I need some grey hair in the organization. The investors want some grey hair, so I fit that bill." Partly because I spent 30 years. I got myself a PhD in physics from Stanford a long time ago. I spent 30 years doing business in the US, and have only been over in the UK for 5 years. So I'd only really just turned up when I came in and figured, okay, a good way to build my network up was to try and help out with QTEC, and didn't just build my network up, I ended up with a job. So it really is a great program. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Murray. That's great. Well, Matt, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. And I'll try and explain what a CPO is. So yeah, I'm Matt Hutchings, and I'm Chief Product Officer at QTEC, which is a new emerging form of Chief Officer. And what just to give you some context, what this role I do in the company is something that couldn't have happened without like the business training I got from QTEC, because 2016 I was sitting in a lab, tweaking knobs and measuring devices, which I haven't done in a long time now, and now because of the training from QTEC, I spend my days talking to our customers, people that might want to use a quantum computer. And I work out from their customer descriptions how we would build a quantum computer that matches that. And that's that unique mix of kind of like deeply understanding the technology and then having that business understanding and that mentorship to go out and have those really quite difficult and unique conversations. So that was awesome. But that's how I became Chief Product Officer at QTEC. And as Jane mentioned, I through the QTEC program, I was very lucky to get great mentorship and go out and meet the group at Hyperus and then spin out QTEC. So I won't dig into what we do. You can read about it on our website. But yeah, it's great to be here.
I think a lot of entrepreneurship can be based around some serendipity, and I think your meeting with Hyperus was somewhat serendipitous. So
a bit of luck, a bit of hard work, I say.
We love the hat, by the way.
You can tell I'm an American spin out.
And Chris, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name's Chris Irvin. Quickly for CATS. Quantum computing is coming on strong with the likes of Matt and QTEC and IBM and Google. And so at CATS, what we've figured out how to do is to miniaturize quantum safe encryption hardware into a size, a form factor. It's chip-based. We're going after sort of graphics cards-like sizes in the first case, but all the way down to chips eventually. So a size, a form factor, and at a price point that makes it commercially interesting to telecommunications parties, data centers, defense and space. Myself personally has been an interesting route. I'm a systems engineering undergrad by training and then did a PhD in quantum information and communication. I liked to tinker with things. I built an entangled free space QKD system that worked across rooftops at the University of Waterloo and in the window of my my supervisor at the Permanent Institute, Ray Laflamme. And just for fun, before leaving Canada, for some reason, we decided to do a 3-photon entangled experiment in trailers in the middle of fields in the dead of a Canadian winter. So that was fun. I came to Bristol basically to partner some of the knowledge I gained in quantum encryption with their integrated optics chip-based approach. It was really the only way that you could see making the technology viable. I got to partner with some great people along the way to do some of the first demonstrations. Phil's CATS CTO, Jake's CATS Strategic Partnerships and Accounts Director, Caroline's our COO, who sort of held CAT Labs together and built it from a couple £1 million to tens of millions of pounds of research funding. And now they're working in CATS with me. And the entrepreneurial spirit really sort of got baked into me at Waterloo, which helped me to set up CATS. But then it's one of those things where we're not quite sure how to set up a company. Something's missing. There's this funding call. why don't we try and help create that missing piece? So my little contribution to QTEC was one of 3 people to write the bid that got grant funded, bless EPSRC's soul. So it was myself, Caroline, and Pete, the outgoing quantum engineering CDT head at Bristol, that wrote that. I helped a little bit where I could get it set up, but it was Jane, Andy, Kim, and the crew that got that going. So it's been ups and downs, a complete roller coaster. But on the positive side, it makes things like little pandemics and stuff that might be a huge deal to deal with quite a bit more manageable. It's a drop in the bucket.
Cool, brilliant, thanks, Chris. Well, we don't have any questions in the chat at the moment, so I'm sure the audience have got lots of, here we go. Thanks, Kevin. Said a message to the founders, what was the most valuable support QTEC offered and how did you go about acquiring funds for market assessment prototype development? It's a really great question. That was where I was going to jump in, is talking in terms of, well, how did you raise the money? Because that is a critical part of this entrepreneurial journey, given the fact that quantum requires a lot of deep pockets. So I don't know who would like to pick that one up, whether it's one for you to start, Chris?
Acquiring funds for market assessment. I mean, Innovate UK has got some wonderful programs. They've got some specifically targeted at feasibility studies. So that's certainly an option to look at. You might have to partner with an academic institution or if you're in a company, but there's definitely great money like that out there. I mean, pick what you think is maybe the biggest customer for some of this stuff, see whether they'll fund it. I mean, 5K, to have someone smart go off and look at a sector that's new to them, they might easily do that. I mean, 2 options.
That's true.
Yeah, I can chime in for a second and give a call back to Kevin, because actually Kevin, and maybe not Kevin personally, but QTEC was some of the early money that Xiao got for us doing the prototype work. Part of QTEC is very explicit, which is you really shouldn't be in the lab. You should be working on your business case, and that's very deliberate, because we try and get people out of the lab. As Matt said, they're all used to tweaking away and not thinking about the big picture. So, but it's a balance, and obviously with hardware in particular, you need to demonstrate the credibility, and you need to demonstrate the performance, or no one's going to believe you. So we were a little desperate for money at the very beginning, and I think we got a little bit from QTEC, which is one of the hubs, of course, and really appreciate it. But after that led on, as Chris said, into normal calling, normal calls, and of course the quantum technology program has been invaluable to us. A couple of really good funding rounds, and we hope more in the future.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to resonate that point, that for me personally, that there is 2 critical things that QTEC helped with. Firstly, it was the network side in the UK and in Europe. That I was doing a postdoc in America, and I'd moved to the UK to set up Seek. So QTEC gave just immediately I had a great network that I could just go tap up and speak to, and that was the most important thing. As Murray was saying, like, we've got to get out of the lab and got to get in front of people. So I was, within a month, I was talking to people daily, every day about what would I do with a quantum computer. And then also in the network sense, getting involved with Innovate UK and the fantastic funding that's available there. That wouldn't have happened without QTEC. That just getting in with their links and just going and writing grants and things like that, which is how part of the journey Seek got started on Innovate UK funding in the UK, and then we're also with the help of QTEC. I was speaking to investors left, right, and centre. And some of those ended up taking us very seriously, but even the ones that ended up passing on us, it was so important to just develop that what investors wanted to know about quantum computing, developing that pitch, and that was all QTEC for me.
I mean, the simplest answer, really, you touched on it, Matt, is go show there's a market for something, that people have a problem they need solving, and you will be inundated with all the resource that you need to develop market prototypes, market assessments, that kind of thing. Show the business case, and the rest will follow.
Can I just twist this question just slightly to bring Araceli in here? Revenue, raising that first invoice, making that first sale. I mean, the businesses, the QLM, CATS and Seek, I think we do have some revenue at QLM, and QTEC also has some revenue, but it's not revenue generating. It's not its lifeblood at the moment. So can you say something about the monies that are coming into your business, how you're dealing with raising invoices and doing consulting work and generating revenue?
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking, what can I say here? And it's really the fact that, so first I want to say that even if you work in industry 4 and you have a business mindset, it's not the same to work in industry that being an entrepreneur. And that's the journey that QTEC is helping you with, really. And for me, I had the idea, but it was really about putting this together in a business plan, in something that it can convince investors, that it can convince people that it's actually a business. So that's the first thing I want to say here. And then all that on top of, you have a client, you have a potential customer, and you need to sell. It's not anymore you. And I think that was one of the things that I have learned thanks to the people in QTEC as well. It was not anymore me. It was QTEC. It was my company. It's a business. It's not like I sell anymore. It's really like, we are doing this. It's we, it's not I. And that was also something very important. And to learn things like raising invoices and things like this, it's just learning by doing the whole time, where you can ask for support, you can ask for feedback, very important, and something that I have had since the beginning. But it's just like, you do something and you are always scared that you are doing it wrong. Is this convincing enough? It's gonna be okay. And at the end, things work out, it's fine. But yeah, you learn by doing. There are a lot of apps and a lot of things now online that they can help you doing these kind of things directly. But like things like, should I put VAT on an invoice? These kind of very specific questions, you don't know until you are immersed really in creating a business. And it also depends on the country. So how do I pay? Like now, my team is delocalized. It's not only in UK. So how do I pay someone who is in Canada? What should I do? So these kind of things are things that you need to learn by doing. But Jane has a lot of experience, a lot of network. So you ask things, and if he's not Jane, if he's not that person, they are going to point you to someone who can help you with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that we've always tried to do within QTEC, is guide and steer you to the people with the knowledge. We've got a flurry of questions coming in. Much as I don't want to leave the funding topic, so feel free to come back, audience, and ask some questions about that. But let's try and address some other ones. So David Lounders said, is anything you think universities aren't doing well in preparing people for programs such as QTEC? And I want to build on that question, because we have another question come in related to IP, and that is something that I very much wanted this panel to discuss. So perhaps we can sort of take the first one first. What are the universities doing well or not doing well preparing people?
Can I jump on that?
By all means.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you first how I learned about QTEC. It was by people in the network who told me, oh, you have an idea for a business, have you heard of QTEC? And the answer was no. So I was involved in a lot of different events. I was going to conferences. I was part of Strathclyde and the university in Scotland. I never heard of QTEC. And that was for me something, I was like, hey, this is the only program in the world that is actually to develop a business in quantum technologies, and people don't know about it. So that's really my answer there, is that I don't think there was a marketing campaign from the universities. That's my honest answer on that.
We might need to be blamed for that one too. Guys, any other questions on that question?
Well, I can't really comment for the UK universities, though obviously I can see what they're doing. I mean, but it's relatively recent. I'd say that the thing that does stand out to me for the QTEC program, and I don't see in the hubs as much, and they are trying, but they are pretty much dominated by academics. And it's still professors trying to teach people how to be business people. And that's a wonderful idea. And I'm sure professors can teach everybody anything they want, but there is a limit. And so you really have to get business people engaged in this pretty stuff as early as possible. Staff up with people who've walked the walk already. And I don't see that, I still think that's a lesson that hasn't been fully observed. Certainly from Stanford's perspective, yeah, sorry, you're not playing the right game yet.
I was going to build on that, say similar. It's get people out to see the real world a little bit, because we've got the Center for Entrepreneurship at Bristol that does group projects. I mean, quite early on, they're starting to think about business cases when they're undergrads. That's great. if I think back to my own time as an undergrad, I would have hated this. I like to do an individual project. I can set my own schedule. It's not till now that I appreciate just how much I won't be able to build anything big in the world if I don't know how to work with people. When I was in the quantum engineering CDT, we took them all out to D-Wave. So they got to see the real world developing this stuff and solving problems, and bringing that as much as you can into the classroom sets some context. When they then do, I don't know, a mock business case contest and stuff like that, the more you can bring the real world into the classroom, the better. And the earlier, the better. I mean, it's never too young to get kids thinking along these lines. A lemonade stand business plan is not so far-fetched if you can make these things fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think at the QTEC side, which is why we use practitioner-led training, not academic-led, and that seemed to work very well.
People who've been there and done it, right?
Yeah, those who have the scars.
Yeah.
If I may jump again, I completely agree with this. I think that's the issue. It's like most of the people are academics, and it's not that they don't even have the knowledge about creating a business, or they never have to. It's that they don't have the motivation. A lot of people they just don't think about application for their science. So you have two kind of people in this case. You have the people that say, I just want to do my science, I don't want to think of applications. And then you have the people that think that anything can be a business, which is also wrong, because not everything can be commercialized. So I think these are the two kind of people that need some support, and QTEC programs and other entrepreneur programs are really needed for that.
Okay. Well, I can see time ticking, so I really would like to move to that topic of IP, because I'm sure that will generate some very interesting discussions. So question from Robin Kennedy: have the founders had any issues with IP ownership coming onto the QTEC program? For example, when the IP is owned by a university, and if so, how have they resolved them? Chris, do you want to start that one?
Right. So, I mean, I spent a lot of time looking at this when setting up KETS. For anyone who knows me, you know I love the Waterloo model, which is inventor-owned IP. I didn't realize it was special until I left. Everyone from the janitor to the dean owns anything they come up with. And it's an opt-in model. So if there is a strong commercialization office there, Watco, and if you need help, you negotiate it in, but it's opt-in. So I didn't think once about IP, and we did set up a startup in Canada thinking about this stuff as well. There's other examples, University 20 and stuff. I mean, I've softened a bit. There's a good article for anyone who wants to read it, Keys to the Kingdom, in, I think it's Nature Biotech. I mean, universities feel the weight and the responsibility of all this wonderful knowledge they're developing, and figure sort of it's picking up on what was just said, but not every idea is a good business. And maybe universities are just trying to be a little bit too smart. Investors figured this out a long time ago. Even with the perfect tech, team, and timing, 9 and 10 fail. It's a numbers game. You spot them all against the wall and see what sticks. So I've softened a bit. I feel the responsibility that universities must feel. But it's sort of like if you take the good examples, a recent furlough scheme. They're trying to micromanage everything. Germany just said, we'll give you the revenues from last year, and devolved it to the companies to work through. It's sort of the same thing. They're trying to anticipate everything. They try and put in blanket policies, and no two startups are the same. So we've had fun. The best thing you can do is arm yourself, learn a lot about IP. The best thing you can do is to tie it to tangible metrics. So the minute we had a pre-money valuation, we had a very easy way of now assigning a certain portion of it to what the IP was worth. So it's things like that. Be a business person, really. I look at it with business eyes, and you'll do well, because facts are facts.
Yeah, QLM's got very lucky, really, in a certain extent, because Zhao left the university for a year or so to go out to industry. He actually couldn't manage to sell his ideas academically, and just went out to industry. His postdoc ran out, basically, and that gave us a nice separation between church and state. And so we don't have any patents that we need to license from the university. QTEC's very good. QTEC does not take any part of the IP that the entrepreneur fellows invent during their time in QTEC. Even though they're university employees, they're not under the same terms. And nevertheless, we are licensing non-patented IP off the university, and it's a little bit of a payback for all the help that they have given and continue to give. And I think the big thing to realize with the universities is that there's a fear, it's really fear more than greed that seems to motivate them. And the fear of missing out on a huge opportunity, of not having those, billions come in when one of us finally strikes it rich, seems to be the biggest fear. And so if you give, if we're giving back a little bit off the top when things are really good. So it's not very painful, and it shouldn't be very painful. And if things are really good, we'll be happy to give back more. So.
Cool. Matt, do you want to just come in and give us some perspective on the IP and SEEK?
I think the UK institutes need to make it, they're progressing, they're changing their mindsets towards IP, and that's a very positive thing. I think they're starting to recognize that, as Murray said, there is there's no one size fits all, right? Every startup is different. So they can't use their blanket policies anymore, and everything has to be negotiated on a case-by-case basis. And I certainly saw that through QTEC, that QTEC were there to give that advice and support on go and have the right conversations, go speak to the right people at the universities and who to speak to. I mean, I was lucky in the fact that a lot of our founding IP came from the US. So the US has already figured this out, that 9 out of 10 companies fail. So the only way universities can make money is just take a little bit of a lot of companies and get them out there. So I'm appreciative of that change of the UK mindset, that UK needs to move out into, universities take a little bit of a lot of companies and get them out there and let them fail or succeed and get out of the way. That's what universities should get out of the way.
And even if you don't believe us, there's all sorts of strong empirical evidence, right? The universities that take the lowest percentage are generally the ones that have the highest success rate in terms of their startup scene. So you don't just have to believe us, it's empirically out there. The other bit, Murray touched on it, it's otherwise you miss this. The entrepreneurial scene is very much a pay it forward and give back. This is what you find in North America, sort of when you're a success, 5 years after, there's that new engineering building or politics building named after that person because they've given a whack load of money back. And that's a great model to foster, because academics can actually be pretty cutthroat when you're both vying for that Nature paper, versus you'd be surprised how many people that should be, sunning themselves on a beach are still in the game helping out for free, worth 7, 8, 9 figures. And it'd be ashamed to miss out on that. And it's sort of missed out a little bit with current policies.
Cool. But if I can just interject on that one from a QTEC perspective, we have had to help a number of our fellows with IP negotiations with universities, naming no names, but yeah, there's a fair bit of work to be done in this country. So
TTO is not generally a title that gets a lot of respect from the business community, I have to say. There's some real characters in those roles that are not always
a tough job too. They've got a really tough job as well.
Well, yeah, but they don't always seem to understand the right perspective. Let's put it that way.
Well, part of it, Araceli sort of spoke on incentives and stuff. The thing you sometimes find is like the university and the TTO office, they're looking backwards at all the research that went into it, the patent that was done, and then you've got the startups and the investors all looking forwards, knowing that the most beautiful IP in the world is 2% of the battle. They've got to market it, find customers, find revenue, all that stuff. So, Araceli, maybe you want to come back in.
It's the standard issue. Absolutely, Chris. I mean, that's the standard issue with IP in general and inventors. The inventors think they've done all the hard work. The rest is just engineering,
And marketing.
But the reality is that rest that's just engineering is going to take 10 times more money. So the investors see it from a very different perspective.
It's exactly what you are saying. Is the gap between the mindsets, and it's also the cultural one. You touch upon that. It's like the mindset in Canada and US is just different than in UK. For me, UK is kind of the closest really to US and Canada. But if you think in continental Europe, it's really hard to spin out a company there, because it's a cultural mindset that is, we need to bring if we want to move forward a new market.
I mean, just to finish off this discussion, that culture mindset is something I see QTEC was doing. That's the point of QTEC, that helping academics change that cultural mindset. So it's that founding piece of, you know, why have the universities started to change their mindset? I think it's in a large part due to the conversations QTEC started. So they've made a huge part in this, actually.
That's a nice comment. Thank you, Matt. We've opened a can of worms with this topic, and I think we could talk about it for quite a long time. Tim was just reminded me we have 6 minutes left. I'd like to pick up a question from John Rarity. How important is the 1 year fully funded fellowship and training, and how are we going to replace QTEC, which seems so successful? And for those in the audience who are unaware, QTEC, it was EPSERC funded, and our grant funding ends on the 31st of March next year. And so there will be no further cohorts beyond the one that we're seeing through at the moment. So who would like to start that answer?
I mean, I can jump in on the importance of that 1 year fellowship was, you know, critical. Yeah, I guess I was the one person on the call that actually got paid to do this, and it was there was two aspects. There was that comfort to give you know, QTEC invested in me for a year to go out and try this, and that took all of that fear and risk off the table. That I still had to pay my mortgage, I still had to, you know, feed myself. And QTEC gave me that opportunity, and they invested in me to go out and try this. And, you know, I was successful, and then now I can pay my own wage, and that's great. But without that year of just, you know, transition, I wouldn't be here where I am today. So that 1 year paid fellowship was critical. And the training, of course, was massively critical. And, you know, I speak the way I speak now because of QTEC, not from what I was. So you know, how do we replace? We have to replace QTEC, is all I can say. You know, I think the success is enormous, and it's obvious, and someone needs to goddamn pay for it. This is ridiculous. Government, step up.
Thanks, Matt. I can hear everybody else has gone very quiet there.
We're happy to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the 1 year is exactly. It allows these students to take a chance. You know, and it's only 1 year. I mean, they've spent 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, you know, subsidized in one way or another to get where they are, and then you get, you know, they're ready to take a chance. But it's really hard to come straight out of university without this sort of help. It's all about connections. Everyone knows business is all about connections. And this is exactly what Matt said. He walked in, he had a network straight away of like-minded people who were going, okay, how do we make this work? You know, and how do we connect you with the other people we've got? You know, some of us still got Rolodexes. They're pretty useful things. So
it's such a different change. You need that year to just help change the mindset. And Matt summed it up. I mean, he just basically said the definition of investment, right? This is when we created money and allowed people to get bank loans and get things going. I mean, you can see what's coming back out of this initial investment. So I hope there's more investment in this area. QTEC is keen to be wildly successful and give back to the area. If nothing else, there might be a lull in Bristol. It'll be a shame. But there's other things happening in Bristol that might take up the mantle. And hopefully we've got our own little Silicon Valley that in the next 10, 15 years, as QLM, as CATS, as SEEK and stuff become wildly successful, then that becomes the legacy, because they'll give back into the ecosystem, and suddenly you have the Silicon Valley phenomenon, the Cambridge phenomenon, that kind of thing. I hope somebody steps up and refunds QTEC, though. That would be the obvious choice. It's so cheap for so much return.
That is so important. That last point. It's cheap. You know, I got paid. You know, the overhead was what, 100K, I guess. And within a year of 2 years of finishing the program, we've just signed up my 6th job with an average salary of 70K. You know,
I'll come and work for you, Matt.
we're talking deep tech. Take it. You know, jobs. You know, that the return on investment is massive here.
I think we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately, everyone. But we have got another panel on quantum technologies next week on Tuesday at the What is Quantum event. We do invite you all to attend there and also ask your questions that might not have been answered in today's session. But thanks very much for everyone's time today. And thank you so much to the panel and to our chair, Jane. We've really enjoyed it. And, you know, thanks, Matt, for saying that QTEC should get refunded. We also agree, of course. But thanks so much, everybody, for your time today. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank
Thanks, everyone.
you.
thank you.
Thanks.